Chapter 26, Shopping and Secrets. Ah, interesting, Ollivander said, almost mirroring his speech from Harry's last life. 11 inches from the wood of a holly tree and containing the tail feather of a phoenix. Nodding his head, Harry didn't ask what was interesting. Instead he asked, "Could I also buy a wand holder for my wrist? In black dragonhide if possible?" Ollivander nodded when Harry spoke and went to find the holster. After placing it on the till, he looked at Harry. "I will be expecting great things to come from you with that wand, Mr. Potter," he said. Harry smiled slightly. "I hope to achieve great things," he said. "That will be 12 galleons and 18 nuts in total," Ollivander said eventually. Reaching into his money pouch, Harry thought of the amount of money he needed and withdrew his hand, the correct sum now in it. Passing it over, Harry attached his wand holster to his wrist and placed his wand in it before leaving the shop. Next, Harry headed for Madame Malkin's. Entering the shop, Harry was glad to find it empty. "First-year robes?" asked Madame Malkin herself as she appeared from behind a clothing display. "Yes, please. Could I also get a few day robes?" and Harry cut himself off with a sheepish rub of his neck. "Well, actually, I need an entire wardrobe, really," he admitted. "Right then, dear, why don't you step up on the platform and I'll measure you up," Madame Malkin said. Standing up on the raised platform, Harry soon had his measurements taken. "Right, dear. I can have the school robes done in a few moments," she said, indicating for Harry to get down. "We can pick out the rest and I can modify the fit for you." "Thank you," Harry said, going to look through the racks. Picking out a few pieces, Harry soon found his arms full with day robes, shirts, trousers, jumpers, underwear, and pajamas. All of it got added to the pile growing on the table. He even picked out shoes and a few accessories. Eventually, between himself and Madame Malkin, who had returned, Harry had a decent variety of clothing which Madame Malkin promised to charm to grow a few inches, so it would last even if he had a growth spurt. "I can have these modified and charmed by the end of lunch. Why don't you come back and pick them up at, say, around 1 o'clock? If that's convenient, of course. If not, I can have them old to you," she said. "I can pick them up," Harry said. It was almost lunch now and he still had to go to the Elop's Owl Emporium to buy Hedwig. "Would you like to pay now or on collection?" she asked. "I will pay now," Harry said. Malkin nodded and tapped her wand to the till. "Your total will be 126 galleons and 6 sickles," she said. Harry nodded at the price, soothing the lady's nerves as she worried the child wouldn't be able to pay such a large sum. "Can I use my heir ring to pay?" Harry asked. Producing the payment sheet, Madame Malkin handed it over. Focusing on the Potter crest, Harry placed his ring in the designated space and watched as the Potter seal appeared. Handing it back, Harry watched as Madame Malkin's eyes widened and then darted to Harry's forehead. Seeing this, Harry looked around the shop before carefully moving his fringe to show the famous scar. "I would appreciate if you kept it quiet that I am shopping today," Harry said. "Oh, of course, Mr. Potter, anything," she stuttered suddenly, making Harry want to sigh. He hated when people suddenly realized who he was and started to treat him like a celebrity. "Right then, madam. I will see you after lunch," Harry said, nodding his head politely in goodbye. Leaving the shop and ignoring the seamstress's stuttered farewells, Harry headed to Elop's. Seeing Hedwig still outside in her cage, Harry smiled brightly. Approaching her large, knowing eyes, Harry hoped that she would bond with him like she had in his last life. Seeing his interest, a shop assistant appeared as though summoned and asked if he wanted to buy her. Harry nodded and barely drew his eyes away from his old friend. "She's a temperamental one, doesn't seem to like anybody. Always takes a nip at whoever has to feed her," the shop assistant warned as he looked at Hedwig in her cage. "She's perfect," Harry said. "Can I also get a large cage and some owl treats?" "Certainly," the assistant said before gathering the items and telling Harry the total. Shrinking them down, the assistant handed them over to Harry, who handed over the required gold in response. Carefully opening the cage Hedwig had been kept in, Harry watched as she looked at him with interest before she walked onto his arm. "Hello, beautiful," he said softly, scratching her in the way he knew she loved. "Well, I'll be damned, you must have a lucky touch," the shop assistant said, watching Harry interact with the bird in awe. Nuzzling against his hand, Hedwig have a contented trill. "My name's Harry and you and me? We're going to be great friends," Harry told the bird. "I'm going to call you Hedwig," Harry continued, and watched as her intelligent eyes seemed to accept her new name. "Right then," Harry said after a moment. Why don't you go and catch yourself some food and stretch your wings for a few hours? I'm currently living at 4 Privet Drive in Surrey, so when you're done, you can return there, Harry instructed the bird. He watched happily as she flew up in the air. Happy now that he had finished all of his shopping, Harry found a small cafe to have lunch before returning to collect his clothing. Glad he was done, Harry wandered through the leaky cauldron and apparated back to Surrey. He didn't want to risk forgetting anything about his first year again like he almost did with the stone, so he was going to make a list of everything that had happened. Thinking back as he wrote, Harry couldn't believe at the amount of things he had done that played into Dumbledore's hands. But then again, that was probably exactly what he had wanted. Vowing things would be different, Harry started to plot. Chapter 27 Magic, Friends, and New Beginnings. 4 Privet Drive, September 1 St. 1991. On the morning of September 1st, Harry could hardly contain his impatience and resentment. He had spent the last month reviewing everything that had happened in his last life, and he honestly feared that he would curse Dumbledore the moment he saw him. So much had been manipulated that Harry truly feared he had never once had a chance to act like himself, to be his own person. Doing one final check of his room, Harry was happy to see that he had not forgotten anything. When he had been packing his trunk, Harry had been careful to ward each compartment individually, especially his book compartment. Harry had returned to London a few times since his first visit in order to buy a variety of books that would not be approved of by many. He had traveled to Knockturn Alley a few times in his past life, but never extensively, so Harry had been anxious this time around. However, his presence was soon ignored. Harry had also been to a private healer and, after making him swear a privacy vow, had him perform an in-depth scan. Harry had been pleased when he had learnt that, without the glamour, he had no need for his glasses, but he still wanted to be checked out. The healer had been horrified after the scans were done and had tried to get Harry to report the damage to the Ministry. Many of his bones had breaks that had healed incorrectly and he had numerous scars. Harry had been given potions to fix the damage as well as an ointment to wear while sleeping. The healer had also worried for Harry's growth and development and given Harry potions to combat the damage. Though he would never be tall, Harry hoped to gain another inch or two. With a final glance around, Harry cast a Tempest Charm that said it was 10:30. Deciding to get to the platform early and find a compartment, Harry released Hedwig from her cage. "You can fly to Hogwarts from here," he said, not wanting her to be cooped up for the long journey. Stretching her wings, Hedwig swooped over to Harry and landed on his shoulder, pecking his ear affectionately before taking flight out of the open window. Walking down the stairs, Harry was not surprised when he saw Petunia standing awkwardly by the front door. He had had few interactions with the Dursleys in the last month. They had taken his warnings to heart after Harry had once again cursed Vernon, this time with Dudley watching. When the man had tried to hit Harry once, he had returned from Diagon Alley the first time. "You're going then," she said. "Yes, I won't be back until the summer. If I return at all," Harry told her. Petunia swallowed again. "Right then, good." Walking past her with his school supplies shrunk down in his pocket, Harry walked a short distance before apparating onto the platform. King's Cross Station, September 1 St. 1991. Arriving at the station, Harry walked quickly. There were a few families milling about that Harry chose to ignore in favor of getting onto the train. Finding an empty compartment, Harry entered and unshrunk his trunk, levitating it above him before he sat down and conjured the book he had been reading. Mind Magics, Shields, and Webs. Even with his mind protected by his air ring, Harry wanted to learn occlumency, if only so he would have better control of his emotions. He had so far developed the beginnings of a mindscape and was trying to meditate for at least an hour a day before bed. It was hard going, but he was positive he would have mastered it by the end of the year. Eventually, Harry's solitude was disturbed by knocking on the door to his compartment. Looking up in time, Harry saw a young Susan Bones enter alongside Hannah Abbott. "Do you mind if we join you?" Susan asked, standing just inside the door. Smiling, Harry nodded. "Of course," he said. He had liked both of these girls in his last life, although they hadn't really been friends. He had known them and worked with them as part of the DA. He also knew they would never be part of Dumbledore's schemes. Susan in particular, as her aunt was the head of the DMLE. Sitting down opposite him, both girls exchanged a look before Susan held out her hand. "I'm Susan Bones," she introduced herself. Taking her hand and kissing the air above it, Harry smiled slightly at her blushed cheeks. "A pleasure, Miss Bones. My name is Harrison Potter." When they heard his name, both girls instantly looked at his forehead and to the place his fringe was covering. Hannah gulped before holding out her hand. I'm honored to meet you, Harrison. I'm Hannah Abbott. Doing the same to Hannah, Harry kissed her hand before looking at both girls. They were staring at him with fascination that made Harry want to sigh. I understand that you've grown up with stories about me, but honestly, I would rather you treat me like every other student. I'm really not that interesting, and please feel free to call me Harrison or Harry. I really don't like it when people act weird around me or treat me special for something I have no memory of doing. Susan seemed to come to a decision then and smiled at him. So, Harry, she started, are you excited to start Hogwarts? Happy that he would not be putting up with fangirls for the entire trip. Harry relaxed slightly in his chair. I am. I've read all about it, Harry said, letting himself act as a soundboard to the two girls, who seemed to explode talking about all they had heard about Hogwarts. Chapter 28 Settling in on the Hogwarts Express. Just as the train started to pull away, another knock was heard. Turning, Harry saw that this time a very timid-looking Neville Longbottom had entered and was now standing awkwardly, clutching his toad in his hands. Do you mind if I sit with you? He stuttered out. Without sparing the girls a glance, Harry agreed, indicating for Neville to sit next to him as he moved his satchel out of the way. Hello, Harry greeted, knowing that at this age Neville was a walking bag of nerves. It wasn't until 5th year that the Neville he knew gained any confidence. Who've you got there? Harry asked, indicating to the toad. Neville seemed to calm down when Harry started to speak to him. Trevor. His name is Trevor, and my name is Neville Longbottom, he said, looking around the compartment. Looking up, Harry gave the girls encouraging smiles, which they seemed to pick up on. Sitting forward, Hannah and Susan both introduced themselves. Once they had done, Harry smiled and introduced himself. Pleased to meet you, Neville. My name's Harrison Potter. Neville spluttered and tried to say something, but no words came out. Deciding to save him, Harry smiled and said, I know, boy who lived and all that rubbish, but really, I'm just Harry. Susan, who had watched this, laughed. I see what you mean, Harry. I bet it does get tiring being treated like that all the time. Neville seemed to shrink in on himself for a moment before he realized they were not laughing at him, sending Harry a hesitant smile. Do you have the scar? Neville asked hesitantly, reminding Harry that Neville was a true Gryffindor. The girls instantly stopped their quiet conversation to look at Harry with interest. Sighing, Harry moved his fringe and showed them before brushing his hair back into place. Does it hurt? Hannah asked tentatively. Harry smiled at the girl. No, not usually. However, sometimes it can ache after I have dreams. Susan frowned. Dreams? She asked. I think they're of that night. Harry paused to shrug. I'm really not sure, and sometimes it just aches in general, he said, wanting to spread this story for when his scar ached in Quirrell's presence, if it did this time around. Oh, was the quiet reply he got. Well, that was depressing, Harry said, trying to brighten the mood. Before you got here, Neville, we were talking out the 4 houses. Do you know which house you want? Neville seemed to shake himself before he smiled. My gran thinks I destined for Hufflepuff, he said sadly. And what's wrong with Hufflepuff? The girls demanded simultaneously before they giggled. And nothing, Neville said, scared for a moment he had insulted them. Harry laughed. Ignore them, Nev. They're both proud descendants of mighty Puffs, Harry said. What about you, Harry? Neville asked. Honestly, there's a chance I'll be in Slytherin, I think. But I want Ravenclaw, Harry said, shocking them. SS Slytherin, Neville squeaked. Sure, Harry said happily, ignoring their horrified looks. Do you really think that's possible? Asked Susan. It's the house of ambition and cunning, Harry said. And I think that I'm ambitious. But, well, you know who? Hannah trailed off. I don't think that an entire house should be judged just because of what happened in the last war. I mean, not all dark wizards are in Slytherin. There are dark wizards in any house, just like there are light wizards in any house, including Slytherin, Harry said. Susan nodded. You're right, Harry. Anyway, I think I would prefer Ravenclaw, so I'm going to ask the hat for that. Ask the hat, Neville asked. Harry realized his mistake, remembering how wizards all tried to keep it a secret how you were sorted. Oops, he said sheepishly, looking around the compartment. Hannah and Susan shared a look and laughed. It's okay, Harry, we know how it works, Hannah said. Yeah, my Aunt Amelia told us because we were worried, Susan continued, whispering conspiratorially. Neville just looked confused. I don't get it, he said, making them all laugh again. It's okay, Nev, don't worry. Harry said. You never did say where you wanted to be placed, Neville, Hannah said after she finished laughing. Oh, well, I think I want to go to Gryffindor, Neville said. My parents were in Gryffindor, but, well, I doubt I'll get in. Don't be silly, Neville, Harry said. I think you would do great in Gryffindor. Really? Neville asked eagerly. Just then the door to their compartment opened, causing them all to turn and look. Can we help you? Susan asked. Can I? Oh, it's you, came the derisive voice of Hermione Granger. Seeing her look, Neville turned to Harry. Do you know her, Harry? He asked. We met briefly in Ollivanders. Miss Granger, yes, Harry said, saying her name as a question. He was very rude to me, actually, Hermione said. Didn't your parents teach you not to be rude to people? She added snidely. Harry couldn't believe his luck. With that comment she had doomed herself, not just to him, but to everybody who heard it. The silence that followed was consuming. Harry had to bite his lip to keep from laughing, which made the situation for Hermione worse, as it looked like he was trying to contain his sadness, not his laughter. Get out, said Neville, his voice so soft and deadly that even Harry was shocked for a moment. I beg your pardon? Hermione said, shocked by his tone. I said leave, Neville said, standing. But dash. You heard him, Susan added, also standing and giving Hermione a withering stare. Looking around, Hermione stuck her nose up and turned, slamming the door in her haste to retreat. Silence fell before Hannah hesitantly spoke. Are you okay, Harry? She asked, taking another moment as he feared if he opened his mouth, he would break out in laughter. Harry shut his eyes and centered himself. Yes, he said softly. Turning to Neville, he smiled at the boy, who was still standing and looking shocked. Thank you, Neville, Harry said. Thank you all, he added to the girls. Chapter 29, The Train Ride to Hogwarts. It's okay, Harry. That's what friends are for. His hesitant use of the word friend made Harry sad. Neville never seemed to have real friends until he was older and, thinking back on it, that made Harry feel guilty, as Neville was a true friend when given a chance. She had no right to say that to you about your parents, Neville added after seeing Harry's smile. I don't know what I did to her in the shop. She just seemed to hate me as soon as she saw me. When I entered, she made a snide comment, and when I ignored her, she started to argue with me, Harry said, adopting a confused expression. Susan sat back and shook her head. She's probably Muggleborn, she said before quickly adding. Not that I have a problem with Muggleborns or think purebloods are better or anything. No, it's just that sometimes when they first enter our world, they feel like they have something to prove. Then again, she could just be a terrible person. Harry laughed. I think it's a combination of all of that, to be honest, he said, easing Susan's fears that she would upset Harry when she mentioned Muggleborns. Seeing the tension slowly ease, Harry sat back happily. He had worried when he thought about coming back to Hogwarts that he wouldn't be able to cope with being 11 again and surrounded by children. But now he had more confidence that he would manage. At least he hoped he would. And to think, Neville, Harry said. You didn't think you were Gryffindor material. What you just did was brave. Neville perked up. It was, wasn't it? He said, his excitement making the girls smile. Eventually Harry started to tune out the conversation and picked up his book again. Reading, Harry would add the occasional comment, but for the next hour or so he devoured the chapter in his book. Are you interested in mind magic? Susan asked when Harry closed the book, having finished the chapter he had been on. Yes, I find it to be quite fascinating, Harry said. My aunt has told me a little about it, Susan said. It's really hard to master, but she promised to try and teach me some basic occlumency next summer. She said it would help me study. Harry was not surprised by this. A lot of purebloods and half-bloods taught their children occlumency if they could. You've heard of occlumency, right? Susan asked. Yes, I find it fascinating. I read about it over the summer, which is what led me to reading this book. I've started to do some of the exercises and think I've got a good starting base, Harry said. That's cool. I'm sure my aunt wouldn't mind answering any questions if you have any. She's a master occlumens because of her job, Susan said happily. Thank you. I will remember that, Harry promised. Once again the conversation drifted and Harry found his thoughts wandering. He joined in, adding comments in places, but he was more than happy to sit back and observe. This time when the trolley lady got to their compartment, Harry once again bought a large amount of food and, like last time, he shared his treats before putting half away in his trunk. I heard it's a smart idea to buy a load now so they can last. We're not allowed to go to Hogsmeade until 3rd year and well, in my case I don't really have anyone to send me sweets, Harry said at their curious looks. Is it true then? The rumors? Neville asked. What rumors would those be? I've heard a lot recently. Well, that you were raised by muggles? Neville said. Oh, that rumor, Harry said, his voice losing some of its warmth. Yes, my aunt and uncle. Do you not like them? Susan asked, picking up on Harry's tone. Harry was suddenly glad that she and Hannah had decided to sit with him. The odds are that she would tell her aunt anything he said. Well, it's not that, it's just that, well, they don't like anything not normal, not muggle, and me, well, I'm not normal to them, Harry said in a quiet voice. Hannah gasped quietly. They don't like you? She said, shocked. Harry just shrugged. They don't, you know? Susan asked hesitantly. Harry just looked up. It's not so bad now since I got my letter, is all he said. After letting that sink in and a silence fall, Harry had to congratulate himself. He doubted that it would change anything, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. Could you not say anything to anybody about that? Harry asked. I don't want people looking at me with pity or anything. Sure, Harry, Neville said. If that's what you want. Smiling, Harry couldn't wait to see what planting the seeds in Susan's mind would do. It helped that he really wasn't lying. Arriving at Hogsmeade Station, Harry joined the crowd of growing first years and looked out for the famous red hair of the Weasley family. Getting to the boats, Harry, Hannah, Susan, and Neville got on together. Harry watched with amusement as Neville struggled with Trevor. At least he hadn't lost him on the train this time, he thought fleetingly. Chapter 30, The Sorting Surprise. As the boats took off, Harry looked up to see with amusement that Ron had somehow managed to get himself trapped on a boat with Draco Malfoy and his two goons, Crabbe and Goyle. Making sure not to use his wand as he didn't want anybody to see him, Harry focused on his magic and sent a push towards the redhead. Harry barely contained his mirth when Ron fell, landing with a splash in the Black Lake. Some people screamed whilst others laughed. Harry thought for a moment Malfoy would join Ron with the amount he was laughing. Easy now, shouted Hagrid from the first boat. He'll be fine. The squid will rescue him. His words seemed to incite more fear and people huddle close into the boats. Eventually Ron resurfaced with a tentacle around his waist and was plopped back in his boat. His white face made his freckles stand out even more. Harry had to bite his lip as he heard Malfoy taunt. Bet that's the first bath you've taken all year, Weasel. Eventually the boats reached the castle and Harry found himself reaching out with his magic instinctively. He felt the castle's magic sing within him and felt an overwhelming peace. Seeing his enraptured look, the girls giggled. It's beautiful, isn't it? Susan asked. Harry, dazed from the magical connection, merely nodded. Yeah. The crowd followed Hagrid into the entrance hall with Ron standing at the front next to him, dripping lake water on the floor. The doors opened and Professor McGonagall entered. Good heavens, what happened? She asked, indicating to Ron. He fell in the lake, Hagrid said. No, I didn't, Ron shouted. I was pushed. I bet Malfoy did it. Draco snorted. Please, like I would want to touch you, he drawled, getting laughs from some people, including a small one from Harry. McGonagall sighed and withdrew her wand. Stand still, Mr. Weasley. You are a Weasley, I presume? She asked. Ron's grumbled reply was lost when Harry heard Draco mutter. Red hair? Hand-me-down clothes? He's obviously a Weasley. After Ron had been dried, McGonagall gave the students 2 minutes to prepare themselves and left, promising to be back. Alone again, the students milled out slightly. The girls and Neville chose to stay close to Harry, who had wandered towards Draco and Ron to watch their argument. I know it was you, you dirty Death Eater, Ron snarled, red-faced. Draco narrowed his eyes. You know nothing, Weasel, he hissed. Oh yeah? Just wait. Me and Harry will get you and your little Slytherin friends, Ron threatened, shocking Harry as he had yet to meet the redhead in this life. I doubt you even know the great boy who lived, Draco said. Me and Harry will be great friends, you'll see. We'll be in Gryffindor together and Ron started before cutting off when Harry snorted. Why are you laughing? Ron demanded. I just think it's funny is all, Harry drawled. Behind him, Neville, Susan, and Hannah were all snickering slightly as they knew who Harry was. Oh yeah, Ron challenged. Yes, Harry said calmly. Well, who asked you anyway? Ron said, dismissing Harry as he turned back to Draco. Looking up, Harry saw the blonde giving him an appraising look. Draco, seeing he had been noticed, nodded his head in greeting. Harry, seeing this, nodded back and smirked slightly. Before Ron could continue his argument, McGonagall returned. "If you would, line up in twos and follow me," she instructed. Not waiting, she began striding through the entrance doors. The sorting happened as Harry remembered, however. This time when Harry's name was called out, there was a gasp of indignation heard coming from Ronald Weasley as he realized who he had argued with and a wide smirk on the face of Draco Malfoy. Walking with grace up to the stool, Harry sat down and waited for the hat to be placed on his head. "Hello again," Harry thought as the hat settled on his head. "Oh, you are interesting, Lord Potter? Or should I say Heir Potter? You're not a lord yet. Such a fascinating mind you have, so many secrets. Oh, you would do very well in Slytherin, but I can see you don't want to go there." "Why not, Harry? You could achieve so much greatness," the hat questioned. "You've seen my mind, you know exactly who I face. If I go into Slytherin, I stand the chance of being discovered that much earlier. Dumbledore's suspicious already now that he's seen I don't have a glamour. If I go to the snake pit, he'll never leave me alone." Harry hoped his reasoning would persuade the hat. He was lucky the hat was bound to Hogwarts and could not reveal what it found in people's heads and held no loyalty to the headmaster, just to Hogwarts itself. "Yes, I see. Then it better be Dash. Ravenclaw." The final word was shouted out loud and, for a moment, the hall froze in shock before erupting into cheers, the Eagle House jumping up and down. Looking around before he moved, Harry noticed Draco Malfoy staring at him again, and nodded his head as he went to sit. Sitting down at his table, Harry was greeted by members, some of which he knew from his past, mainly the ones close to him in age but some he had never met before. Beside him was Padma Patil, who Harry knew through the DA and from the disaster that was the Yule Ball, when he took her twin Parvati. Terry Boot and Sue Lee were opposite him, with Anthony Goldstein and Michael Corner slightly further up. Lisa Turpin was finally sorted and she took the space next to Harry. "Do you really have the scar?" asked Harry, staring at Harry intently as though he was trying to see through his hair. Sighing, Harry looked around. "I understand that as Ravenclaws you all love mysteries and knowledge, but please, can you not stare at me like I'm something special?" "I'm really not," Harry said. "How can you say that? You defeated you-know-who?" asked one of the older students listening in. "I didn't actually," Harry said, causing silence to fall around him. "What?" asked multiple people in shock. "I very much doubt what happened had anything to do with me. I was most likely a mistake on Voldemort's end or something done by my mum," Harry said.